Hey, Dom. Scott Chasin here, the CTO, Chief Technology Officer at Pax8. I'm in Denver, Colorado. Lived in Colorado now for almost 30 years. I have a fairly lengthy history in technology and I hate this term, but I'll say it, a serial entrepreneur. I am a technologist at heart. I love tech. I love all things software, all things hardware.
You've been based in Colorado all of your career, or?
Yeah, well, most of my career, I should say. I moved to Colorado in 1994 from Houston, Texas. What brought me to Colorado was a unique consulting opportunity with a long distance telephone company based in Colorado Springs. That company was being hacked. And at the time, I was an independent computer security consultant. This was before we actually called that role a cybersecurity consultant. We just said computer security. And I got a call from this long distance telephone company and they requested my assistance. They read about me in a magazine and said, can you help us? You asked me how I moved to Colorado. There's a long story that's in there. To back up a little bit, my background is cybersecurity. I guess you could say I'm one of the early pioneers. I've been doing it since the 80s, late 80s, and obviously I made it a career. And that's essentially how I got to Colorado.
It's so analog. I found some guy read about me in a magazine and rang me up. And then said, we've been hacked when there were. I was talking to somebody else about their time launching the first internet consulting business, and at the point where their business was formed, there were about 1 million people in the world on the internet. I think it must have been similar. 1994, not a lot of people on the internet, pre-internet, so hacked over the phone line.
Yeah, so this was a long distance company that had an ISP business. Wasn't even called an ISP. It was called a community news service. And, people would use their modems and connect up to it and get their email and their Usenet feeds. And yes, it was being hacked. It was actually connected to the Colorado SuperNet at the time, which was one of the early research networks in North America. There was a breach. And the owner of this long distance company was John Street. And John is the current CEO of Pax8, which is the company that I work for now. So a long history with John. And certainly, if you go back to the early days of when the internet was just at the cusp of being born, really, I should say commercialized, security was very different. It was, really just, I should say, completely open. So not a lot of security controls and certainly not a lot of focus in defense and in protection.
Having ridden a number of waves like you through the last 20 years or so, how do you feel about AI? In some senses, it feels like right at the beginning of something completely new, almost like cybersecurity back in 1994 when you went to Colorado.
It's just such an interesting time to be alive right now. And AI, I believe, is as revolutionary as the internet, as the mobile phone, or even television. It is something that is going to touch every aspect of humanity and I think really chart a new evolutionary course for all of us. And I think we're just now seeing, the what I would call the 300 baud modem days of artificial intelligence, meaning we're right there at the very beginning. And wow, what's coming and what's coming fast is absolutely mind-blowing. and I think extremely disruptive.
Do you use any, do you use ChatGPT every day, using other tools that you are using every day? What habits have changed?
So I use Microsoft Copilot. I use ChatGPT quite a bit. I do a lot of experimentation with a lot of the open source models that are out there. The rate of change in terms of what we're seeing with AI is both centralized and decentralized AI is just absolutely incredible. I would say this, it's hard to keep up with the rate of change. AI is growing so fast. It's developing so quickly. It just blows me away. In fact, I've not seen such rapid evolution in tech ever. And it's also, at the same time, I think a really good example of a pretty clean hype cycle. What do I mean by that? Well, if you go back to, March of 2023, when we all first got exposed to ChatGPT, we were, I think, collectively just blown away by its capabilities. And I think where we are today is the opposite of that. It's like, well, okay, is that all it can do? So the demand, I think, is there to see the what's next. And you'll hear OpenAI and Sam Altman and others speak to this in terms of have patience, and that's really interesting because it's as powerful as that initial exposure was, especially with OpenAI and ChatGPT, amassing 100 million users in its first 3 weeks. We want more already, and I think the weekly drip that we're experiencing is mind-blowing. And in fact, just this week, we saw incredible developments from OpenAI in terms of Sora, their text-to-video model, which is just, it's scary. And at the same time, it's absolutely exciting. That kind of drip, though, I think is creating a lot of anxiety because we don't know what's going to happen next week. We don't know what's going to happen next year, let alone, 3 years, 5 years out. That's part of the thrill of the ride. And that's why I'll say it's an amazing time to be alive right now.
What do you see it doing to your business model and the sort of evolution of Pax8 from a distributor to a technology business? Has it accelerated that?
Yeah, so Pax8 is a cloud commerce marketplace. We don't say the D word. Those guys are the legacy of how essentially hardware was shipped. You remember those firewalls and those everything as an appliance days. Those are the guys that fulfilled all that demand. Well, the world's changed, and they're still trying to take that old model and plug in this new opportunity. It just doesn't work. Pax8 was created to really disrupt that model and recognized very early that software and how software in the future would be discovered and purchased specifically for the small to medium-sized business wouldn't scale with those models. And so, the cloud commerce marketplace that is Pax8 today is a great representation of where we see cloud software specifically in terms of procurement and discovery, where all that's going. And, we've really focused over the last few years on embracing AI in machine learning to really define the end customer lifecycle. And so our business model really centers around the managed service provider, the MSP. And this is your outsourced IT shop. Traditionally these break fix types of companies that a small business would go out and hire as their outsourced IT person. They've all started to evolve over the last decade plus with the introduction of software as a service. And now managed services, which include SaaS, are really the core value proposition that MSPs offer the small business. So you think about a small business, Dom, today. I mean, they live in a world of scarcity. They are very limited in terms of budget and resources. And they need that third party, that trusted advisor, that managed service provider to come in and show them the path of what they should be buying and how they should be deploying it. That's really led to just phenomenal growth with managed service providers around the world in delivering both software and hardware, but as a managed service to the small and medium-sized businesses. And that's where Pax8 is focused. So our world revolves around the managed service provider. That's a partner ecosystem that really Pax8 is brute forced with over 30,000 MSPs in our marketplace today. So they essentially buy software from Pax8 to then turn it into a managed service to sell downstream to their SMB customers. That is our model today. And AI, and more specifically data, because data, obviously is the new oil. I'm sure you've heard that phrase time and time again. And Pax8 acts as a refinery, so to speak, for the data that these MSPs hold so that we can manage the life cycle of their customers and show these service providers what they should be selling next or what solution they should be putting in front of their customers next. And so the output of that refinery is really electricity or AI, right? And that's what we're using to power those next logical solution insights. I know that was a long-winded response, but that's what a modern day cloud commerce marketplace is. And, it's all about AI and data ultimately.
But you've got ambitions to be not just one-sided, but multi-sided in terms of marketplace. What else are you looking to plug in?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we look largely at the trends of how SMBs not only are buying software, but how they're discovering it. And when you look at vendor strategies, specifically in terms of addressing the small and medium-sized business segment, we see a lot of opportunity there. Product-led growth strategies over the last decade have really taken hold. And we've seen some, fantastic software vendors embrace PLG as a way to really go after not just the consumer market, but the SMB market. However, while most vendors want to go after the small to medium-sized business, the fragmented nature of the market, meaning the smaller deal sizes and the unit economics simply just don't scale appropriately for vendors to go after it directly. It's cost prohibitive. So the customer acquisition cost it just doesn't work for most vendors. So even though there's this massive SMB total addressable market, in fact, the TAM for SMB is, I would say, pretty on par with the enterprise TAM, if you look at it globally. And of course, SMBs are the lifeblood of, the world economy. So it's very attractive for vendors, but they simply can't scale to go downstream. That's why you'll see most SaaS vendors start, at the enterprise layer where, it's much better unit economics and you get 7-figure, total contract value opportunities, multi-year deals. For SMB, it's a big challenge, even with, product-led growth strategies. And so we see an opportunity to really, take our marketplace and enable the plumbing for vendors, not just to list and deploy their products in our marketplace so that our MSP partners can sell them downstream to the SMB, but to really enable more scalability and efficiency in terms of customer acquisition. It's pretty obvious if you were to go to any of the large SaaS players, whether they're in security or they're in productivity or pick a segment. and you go and you say, I'm a 30-person law firm. You identify yourself as that on their website or their homepage. You're going to get presented with a sales contact form. Okay. And I can tell you what happens to that lead once you fill it out. It goes to the floor. You'll be lucky if somebody calls you back. We see an opportunity. And by the way, that's because these vendors, again, they don't have the infrastructure, resources, or scale to go after that lead. And so we see an opportunity to turn that sales contact form into a buy now button, where we can provide the transactional capability for that vendor and essentially be their customer acquisition engine at scale. And in turn, be their indirect go-to-market for SMB as well, given our reach with 30,000 managed service providers and our marketplace. So yeah, we see a massive opportunity enabling vendors with both customer acquisition that's scalable for the SMB and also driving consumption with the reach in our marketplace.
When you look at other marketplaces, do you want to be the Amazon of this thing, or are there other marketplaces that are already in the B2B space that are better examples of this?
In B2B, I would say there are some, absolutely. In software, not so much. Amazon as a consumer marketplace is obviously the first thing that probably comes to mind, in terms of just a two-sided marketplace. What Pax8 is really ultimately building is a three-sided marketplace, because what we have is essentially the gateway to the small business, which is the managed service provider. And so if you were to look at the Pax8 ecosystem, it's a classic Venn diagram. It's, the managed service provider, the small to medium-sized business, and then the software or SaaS vendor. And Pax8 sits at the middle of all three of those. And our vision is simple. We want to provide value to all three constituents in that Venn diagram. And we want to do that as a marketplace. And so we're the only ones today that have the critical mass in all three of those constituents to be able to execute this at scale. Not that there's not others that are out there, and there are, but we somewhat stand alone today in terms of the critical mass and the momentum that we're seeing with the adoption of our marketplace.
Interestingly, though, because you've got the 30,000 MSPs around the world who themselves are dealing with SMBs. So you've got a finger on the pulse of sort of the world economy. SMBs often, as you say, live in the scarcity mindset, right? And so they're not spending on software for the fun of it. And you mentioned law firm. One of our clients is a SaaS provider to law firms. And it's not the first one I've worked with. And I see often particularly lawyers, because it's a partnership. And so they're quite risk averse. So again, any economic bad news and, getting sales through them is really tough until, they get a sense of the world has become less scary for them to live in. What's your sense of the world economy? Like Asia, Europe, US, are we in recession? Is your business still growing? Are times tough?
Yeah, so we do see a lot of trends. We do not see a downturn specifically to the SMB in software procurement. It's simply not something that we're tracking. We continue to experience month over month amazing growth, and I think it really speaks to a number of things. It speaks to one, this is a massive conversion window that we're in, and what I mean by that is, specifically cloud software or SaaS is still, believe it or not, pretty much in its early stages. If you think about just, endpoint security as an example, 50% of the world is still on traditional antivirus software, the software that goes and it scans using signatures to find whether or not you've got a virus installed on your PC. The next generation endpoint security is all cloud driven. That's just one example of many that really speak to this conversion window that we're in. And in the West, where you see adoption generally occur first for most cloud, oriented technologies. That's been the history over the last decade plus. There is a lot of growth and opportunity left in that conversion cycle in the East. And we're really starting to see that. And Pax8, just over the last year and a half, has formed a presence in APAC and Southeast Asia to really take advantage of that. So I would say cloud conversion is still a huge growth driver there. AI is absolutely going to be another pretty amazing growth cycle in terms of cloud software. Most vendors that are established or mature are all looking to AI to completely transform their product roadmaps. And in fact, I would say that if you're not doing that today, if you're one of these SaaS or cloud vendors, if you're not looking to AI seriously, you might find yourself out of business in the next 3 to 5 years. That's how critical it is for most software vendors.
And are they seeing that transformation in the development of code, efficiency of code development, or customer acquisition, or customer service, or?
I think it's about, all of that, absolutely. That's about being an efficient company, right? Those are table stakes. I would say I'm speaking more towards evolving their core value proposition to transform what they do today or simply be left behind. That's the challenge that I think anybody who's in software has today. Yeah, of course, how you actually develop and deliver your value needs to embrace AI in terms of efficiencies and productivity. But no, I'm talking about core value proposition transformation.
And, somebody like Google, happening to them already, where, I now either I'm using AI to search, particularly Perplexity, find that, I get, or even, Copilot, Perplexity, or Gemini, get better results than searching on Google and trying to get to page 10 and find the one I want. And just that is just, a couple of years ago, Google, nobody would think search would it's the sort of when you were saying earlier, people are looking over the horizon, or they're looking to the horizon, and their time window is so short it makes them feel nervous. So you can't do a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan, because this sort of pace of change and business model disruption just makes people nervous.
That's the word, right? It's the classic definition of disruption. And I think that's where we're at today. And that's why I said earlier, it's an exciting time to be alive, because these roadmaps are extremely compressed. And you're seeing an amazing amount of investment into AI, whether it's new startups or technologies, or even the established players moving mountains to embrace their roadmap. The one that's really interesting that I've got my eye on is Apple. I think you're going to see some really interesting product announcements from Apple very soon that speak to that core disruption. And again, across the board, I would say if you're a SaaS company or a technology provider today and you're not thinking about AI, you're doing it wrong. And I'd say the other component, outside of software, is the hardware piece. And this is where it's going to get really interesting as hardware really starts to embrace the AI opportunity. And of course, you can see, just in terms of the delivery of AI and associated services, NVIDIA and what's happened to their market cap just over the last, 3 years, it's just absolutely stunning. I'm more speaking to what happens when your phone embraces AI, when your security cameras truly embrace AI, when your home assistants, or maybe even your toothbrush, right? So, that's where we're going. The IoT craze that we saw over the last decade is about to evolve yet again. In this time, using AI and of course the cloud to deliver a transformational value proposition.
Well, and of course, over time, all of those NVIDIA chips will get cheaper and more powerful. Other people will rush to market to build them, and the Moore's law will go again.
That's the great thing about the cycle. I mean, the commoditization opportunity is great for consumers, right? Hopefully you'll see some transformational opportunities for the consumer in terms of just the little things in life that I think have a major impact. Obviously, we're starting to see those things today in electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, but I think you'll start to see it show up in your daily interactions with everyday things over the next 2 to 5 years.
So some of the things that won't change, I guess, are people. So
you say that, Tom. You say that. I don't know what you mean by that, though.
Well, I whenever people talk about things that are changing, great companies are made, built, and staffed by great people. You don't get great service from miserable people, and you don't get great products from people who don't want to work at a company that, great people have a choice. And so Pax8 still a technology business, a marketplace, but staffed by best part of a couple of thousand people. And certainly when you and I've spoken in the past, you've been vocal about the culture at the business and where it is and how you wanted to build. And you've been CEO before being CTO at Pax8. You're CEO of your own business. So, I'm just trying to pick your brains on, what do you think makes great culture and great employees?
Passion. It's something that, I've always believed in. In fact, I have a formula. I call it passion engineering. I believe that every employee has a tank, a reservoir, right? That's filled with passion. Okay. At least it's your job to make sure that it's filled appropriately. That tank, it's not finite. It runs out. And it could be as simple as, a new project, or putting that employee on a new team, or giving them the opportunity, maybe 10% of their time to go focus on something they really believe in. Passion is what makes a job not a job. Passion is what drives quality. Passion ultimately is what drives execution. And I would submit that passion ultimately is not only a part of the culture of a great company, but stamped into the DNA of the product or value that company delivers. And you can see it, right? You can see, if you go and you look at companies that produce great products, and obviously when you say that, most people would say Apple. Apple produces great consumer products. If you look at their culture, it's an amazing culture with a lot of passionate people. And I would say the inverse of that is also true. You can look at companies that produce products that, aren't great. And you can bet that their cultures aren't so good and they probably lack a lot of passion. So I'm a big believer that, passion drives excellence and success, but it's got to be engineered. It's not for free. It's finite. And we all have to, as leaders, find what works in terms of your culture and how you drive passion. I do it through inspiration. Literally, at my last company, ProtectWise, we had a banner. You walked in the office, it said, "This is not a job. This is the future." And you have to, not only believe it, but as leaders, you got to show it. And you show it through execution and commitment and being there, using the day as wisely as you can. And it's not about what happened yesterday. It's not, you can disregard the good or the bad of yesterday because we only have right now. And so it's that type of inspirational attitude. As leaders, we owe it to our employees. Most employees, they're not motivated financially. Of course, money helps in their lives, but they want a purpose. They want to be led. And so this is it. This is, at its core, what I call passion engineering.
Two things occur to me. One is it feels as though you're using passion in a way that I might think about people being in flow at work. I would do this even if you didn't pay me, or this is as close to a hobby. I mean, I was talking to a CEO earlier, and she was talking about potentially exiting her business, and she's like, but what would I do? I would do this anyway, even if people weren't paying me. I love doing my job. Can you get people to that point, or is it in people's DNA and you've got to find people that you can passion engineer, or can you do it to anybody?
I think that you can certainly. Talent acquisition needs to look at those that have experienced this type of passion. And this is by no means, new thinking. Great employees that are overly passionate. There's indicators there. What kind of hobbies do they have? What do they do in their personal lives? What kind of meaning are they looking for? I think the flow state is an outcome of being passionate, but I think it's more than that. I think it's believing in your company, having a purpose-led mission, having a vision that really speaks to that purpose, and providing the tools and the inspirational tools that allow them to fill that tank is really, really critical. You can certainly find signals in signs in the talent acquisition process, but I believe that anybody can develop passion if they're inspired to do so. If they're recognized and rewarded, then retainment comes pretty easy because, it's not a job anymore. It's what they believe in.
How do you define that purpose belief at Pax8? What does it mean to you?
It's as simple as we think we have an opportunity to change the world. We think that while cloud commerce isn't, sexy, it is serving the underserved. It is about enabling the small business, which is the backbone of the world economy, to succeed and to thrive. And so, that's what we do day in and day out. And to do it at scale and to do it globally, that's a purpose. That's a mission, which for me and for, most of, if not all of the Pax8 employees, is what gets us up in the morning.
Very good. Very good. I was just thinking about the scale of the organization, and I was just thinking, you got some investment last year, which gave you unicorn status, and I just wondered whether being a unicorn, is that a blessing or a curse, or does it put a target on your back, or is it good?
The macro condition certainly has changed, as it always does. I wouldn't say that growth is necessarily valued as it once was, which is just strange to say out loud. We are growing. In fact, it seems like every month is a new record at Pax8 in terms of growth. But it's got to be more than that. Sustainable growth is really, I think, where the world is headed today. This is the cycle we're in. And the hard part about that is that I think at Pax8, truly it's an embarrassment of riches. We have so much opportunity. Our vision takes us out 5+ years. I can close my eyes, Dom, and I can see the future state. In fact, this is how I build. This is how I like to take myself out 5 years and look at that end state, and then turn around and walk backwards and figure out the milestones on that journey. And we've done that. but we have to be responsible, in terms of how we execute that journey and that growth. So, and that means, responding to the macro, and making sure that, we use our rocket fuel, so to speak, appropriately, efficiently. It's an opportunity that we see that, isn't a short-term horizon. We're focused on the very long term. We see Pax8 becoming a large cap, global company that truly is the plumbing for majority of the world's cloud commerce.
What do you look for in the leaders in your business for this journey? Like we've talked a bit about instilling passion or passion engineering. What else do you look for in leaders in your business?
Talent obviously comes in a lot of forms. Pattern recognition is great, right? I mean, we're going to make mistakes. We like to fail forward. Obviously you can't achieve success unless there's some failures there. But how do you respond to that? How do you have the resiliency and the focus, the organizational skills, the execution skills, and then the passion piece. All of that is key, but it's also, I think, about providing a path in a journey. So there's two journeys, right? I mean, there's the journey that's the purpose, led mission of the company. And then there's the personal journeys that we're all on. And, largely it's about, I think, cultivating leaders by creating a leadership model where we're available to not only inspire, but to help our employees grow on their own journeys. And, when you think about it, truly, we're all in a race. It's not a competition that's between employees or between us as individuals. It's a competition with ourselves. And it's what you do every day and how you show up. And as leaders, part of our responsibility is to be available to help all of our employees grow and be successful on their path within their own, mission, within their own purpose-led expedition. So we're all trying to summit the mountain of success, and there's really two flavors of that. There's how we do it as a company, and then there's how we do it individually.
And is that harder to do now remotely than it was previously in the office?
It's definitely more challenging. And as unfortunate as the pandemic was, it accelerated a lot of timelines. I think naturally humanity is on a path to be digital. I was lucky enough to get one of these Apple Vision Pros, the goggles. And I'm blown away by its capability. I've been a VR fan for a long time, but when Apple gets into a space, I mean, they truly create something magical, and they've done it with the Apple Vision Pro. And you can see it's early. I mean, it's an amazing device, but not without flaws, as every 1.0 device is. But you can see where it's headed, and you can see where society is headed in terms of being digital. And I'm a big believer in that. But we're not there yet, where being remote can compete with being present in the real world. And I do think that day will come. It's not today. And so what I mean by that is there are challenges in managing teams, managing execution, in a completely remote environment. It can be done. It is being done, but there are challenges. And I think, we need to look at across the board those challenges and how we can resolve some of them. And I do think it speaks to more of a hybrid approach. But certainly there are tremendous benefits for the employee to be remote. There are benefits, for companies as well, right? In terms of talent acquisition, specifically. But there are challenges in terms of execution, and we haven't solved those yet.
I was interviewing somebody the other day who would have a 4-minute pedestrian commute. She lives round the corner. I said, have you got any questions about this role? And she said, yes, can I work from home? You're 4 minutes up the road. Like there is no commute tax to pay. But she wanted to work remotely.
And I think part of the answer is being flexible, right? I mean, it's obviously, I think it comes back also to that personal journey. It's not one size fits all, certainly. Whether you're looking at it through the lens of an employee or how companies are managing remote opportunities and with their employees. So it's simply not one size fits all. And I do believe it or not, I do believe that this journey that we're on, there will be a technological solution that really breaks through the fourth wall, that really eliminates the need ultimately to be housed physically in the same room. I think we're on that journey already. It's not there yet, but I don't think it's that far off.
Okay. What is it you know now, Scott, that you wish you'd known earlier?
Wow. That's a fun question. I probably shouldn't have sold those domain names back in the early 90s. I would say your intuition means a lot. Don't second guess it. Be true to yourself. Believe in others as much as you want to believe in yourself. Those things are really important. And sometimes the ego takes over in life. And you got to remember, again, that we're all on our own journeys here. And, stick to what you believe in and let your intuition drive you. I think, earlier in my career, which I think most people would say, when you don't have the pattern recognition or the wisdom, you make decisions that you wish probably today you could take back. I think we all go through that. That's part of the process, right? But I would say stick to it. Be passionate, right? The drive and the grind, that's everything. But only do it if you're in love with what you do. When you can truly say, this isn't a job, this is the future.
Fab. It sounded like there was some regret or missed opportunity in there, but I won't dive into that. I'll leave that for another day.
There always is.
What have you got? What books do you think people should pick up and read? What's been useful to you, or what have you been reading on the Sun Lounger? Or
yeah, I mean, let's see. There's a couple that I just finished. One is called "This Is How They Tell Me the World Ends," by Nicole Perroth. It is a book about the software vulnerability arms trade in cybersecurity. I had a role in that back in the early 90s when I created BugTrack, which was the first software vulnerability alerting service that the world saw. And then the other one is an interesting read that I just thought was fascinating. It's called In Plain Sight by Ross Colhart. And this is an interesting topic that I've been following around UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it's an investigation into UFOs and the science behind it. It's very interesting. Again, a couple of really interesting poolside reads that I would recommend.
Well, do you know what? I was reading an article at the weekend about plasma clouds. That's a phenomena that appears to be responsible for lots of the sightings. And they're attracted to metal objects like aeroplanes, and so end up traveling very, very fast like an aeroplane. And so seem to be responsible for lots of the things.
And some would say with intelligent behavior, which is really interesting.
Yeah. So no, I look forward to digging into that, because I just, unless alien species are different to the way in which we have evolved on Earth, we would have been colonized and destroyed, or they'd have brought a disease that would have killed us off. So I just can't see that it's real. But I look forward to reading the
science. Plenty of schools of thought on that. But this is a really this is a really interesting book that I think removes some of the veil on in terms of Ross's research. Removes some of the mystery behind it. So definitely worth a read.
Look forward to reading that. That's fab. What have you got? Have you got a thing based on your knowledge and wisdom? A thing that people should do tomorrow? A tip?
Well, why put off what you can do tomorrow when you can do it today, Dom? And I would say, don't waste time. Don't waste time. Don't waste time with regrets about the past or anxiety about the future. You have right now. Go for it.
Thank you, Scott. That's brilliant. Lovely to have you on. Great to chat to you.
Great chatting with you, Dom. Thank you.